If you want to make change, it's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, and it's going to take work.
All good things that are worth it absolutely does take work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we get a lot from TV about just like, oh, you go to therapy and you say like my mother was bad and all of a sudden you're better. It's like, sorry, it's a lot. We're a lot.
Everyone wants the quick fix, but nothing is like that.
Welcome to the Root Cause Reset, the podcast where we cut through the noise of symptom chasing and quick fixes and get to the truth about what's really going on in your brain and body. I'm Dr. Trish Schneider, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and functional bloodwork specialist. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Root Cause Reset podcast, the place where symptom chasing goes to die and root cause healing takes the damn mic. Today's episode is going to hit different. We're diving into the mental health of kids, but not from the what's wrong with them angle. No, we're flipping the script because sometimes what looks like defiance, distraction, or anxiety is actually the nervous system begging to be heard. My guest today, Dr. Elie Saltzman, clinical psychologist, trauma expert, anti-bullying advocate, and wrestling coach of all things. He's worked everywhere from therapeutic day schools to residential trauma programs, and today he's here to unpack why behavior is never just behavior, it's communication. Buckle up, we're getting into the real reasons kids shut down, lash out, and get mislabeled, and how we fix it from the inside out. Dr. Saltzman, welcome to the Root Cause Reset podcast. Let's go straight for the jugular. In your opinion, what is the most damaging myth about kids' mental health being pushed into schools and clinics today?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be here. I'd say probably the thing I see a lot that's the most damaging, like you said, is the idea that a kid themselves, whatever, is the problem, that the kid is bad. There's something inherently wrong or dysfunctional about their being, their brain, their mind, whatever. And it promotes this idea that there's nothing we can do, that this kid is just labeled as hopeless, whether it comes from the teacher, administrator, sometimes the parents, unfortunately. Just this idea that there's some children out there that can't be helped.
Really sad. And I hear a lot too that it's just behavior. It's boys will be boys. They'll just outgrow it. Or, it's the parents who don't know how to discipline. I really hear that a lot. And what ends up getting really missed is we're not looking at the reasons for the behavior. No one is questioning the why. Why is this child behaving this way? What's really going on? Have we looked at their nutrition? Have we looked at their blood work? Have we looked at any deficiencies, things like that? That could be the underlying reason why they're hyperactive. They can't stay awake in class, why they're acting out. So we're not really looking at, why is this kid behaving this way? We're just making assumptions that, well, they're just misbehaving or they want attention. Yeah, it's just the way that, we just address it is we just brush it under the rug. And it really is it's really sad that we're just really labeling these kids as just being a behavioral problem when in fact it goes so much deeper than that. Even coming from trauma. I mean, that could be one of the reasons why these kids they're acting out because negative sometimes is better than no attention at all. And that's the only way that they're getting any, interaction at all. It could be from a place of, where they're getting trauma. Unfortunately. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
trauma can play a huge role.
for sure. And you've worked with kids with PTSD, ADHD, and severe anxiety. Can you walk us through the invisible root causes that most people miss?
Yeah, I mean, for trauma, it's a tough one because you're talking like a lot of times what I'll tell even clinicians is, what's your biggest secret? What's your darkest fear? What's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And you can see that they're full grown adults. They've gone through, higher education. They have doctorates and they can't talk about it. And then the question is, okay, how do you expect a kid to talk about it? A 6-year-old who maybe can't even explain what happened to them. So we're oftentimes able to kind of see the symptoms of trauma, the outcome of whatever happened to these kids. But you have to be very attuned to it, or unless the kid is able to talk about it, it can go missed. And again, we're kind of back into that same cycle we were talking about before, where it's just a bad kid. It's just a behavior or something. And, just learn to sit still, learn to behave, learn to cooperate, whatever the child is struggling with. So, yeah, I mean, just when it comes to trauma specifically, it's up to the adults in the room
Hmm.
to be more aware of what trauma can look like in children. And even if they're not aware of it, to just like be cognizant of the fact that it probably isn't just a kid who was born this way.
Right. Now, Dr. Saltzman, you work with children and adolescents. Can you tell us about your typical day and some of the work that you do with kids and
Yeah.
teenagers?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of my practice now focuses on something called neurofeedback, where it's a more of a kind of in between a kind of therapy and holistic treatment. So we'll look through a trauma lens. A child comes in with some trauma history. So maybe we'll see they're presenting with some ADHD type behaviors. Maybe they're presenting with some anxiety type behaviors, whatever it might be. The first step we do is we actually do a brain scan, and we can see the areas of the brain that are overactive or underactive. And more often than not, that's where we can identify trauma. It's actually kind of nice because it is a way to kind of uncover that hidden root cause, like you were saying. I can't tell how many people come in with ADHD and we say like, hey, did you forget to tell us something about your history? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden it comes out. Once we've identified those areas, we can start the training process where we, oftentimes for kids anyone with trauma, we're working on the parietal lobe. It's usually a little bit overactive in the frequencies between 8 through 12. That's called the alpha frequencies. And we just kind of ease those down. We work on how the cognitive processes that are disruptive during trauma, we can kind of put them back to the way they're supposed to be, where information is processed in the appropriate way.
Interesting. So, based on these scans that you do, you actually see that there are physical changes in the brain that occur with trauma and with ADHD and all of these sort of things, that
Yeah,
they're biological conditions and not just like emotional and behavioral, like we've been sort of
right.
led to believe all of these years, that there's actually physical
Hmm.
changes that occur in the brain.
Yeah.
And what is the process to sort of correct these changes that, you see in the brains of these children that you work with?
Yeah, it's at the heart of it. It's a behavioral change. It's a behavioral process. I
Mhm.
apologize. So once we've identified the areas we want to target, we just only target those areas. We put electrodes only on the areas identified. Those electrodes are hooked up to a computer. The computer is hooked up to we use a monitor. There's other ways of doing it. We use visual stimulus. So as the brain kind of naturally fluctuates in and out of the ranges that we're aiming for, the stimulus will give a reward or not give a reward. There's no punishment here, thankfully,
Mhm.
but it will either provide the reinforcement or not. The most basic way of thinking about it is actually auditorily. It's been done this way for years, where there's just a beeping noise. Every time the brain looks like a trauma brain, the parietal lobe is overactive. There is no sound, there's no beep. But every time the area of the brain calms down, we're seeing a kind of typical brain, the computer makes a beeping noise. And so we just tell the kids, hey, try to make the computer beep. When it's beeping, you know you're doing what you're supposed to do. And over time, the brain learns to calm itself down in order to get the computer to beep.
Interesting. And how many sessions are required for this to occur and sort of repair itself? And is it a permanent change, or does this have to occur over a period of so many sessions? And how long
Yeah.
do these sessions have to occur?
No, excellent questions. It's definitely a big thing we talk about at the clinic. It takes a while. It's a pretty slow process, just like any behavioral training system, right? It needs consistency, and you need to put the time in. Generally, the earliest we'll start seeing any sort of change is around 10 sessions. We try to aim for like 2 sessions a week, which is kind of nice too. Going a little bit faster, but at least once a week is preferred. And then yeah, so 10 sessions, we start seeing some changes, and they're gradual. Usually by like 30 sessions is where we're seeing real good growth. So we are talking about a good couple months of treatment. Once we've done a few sessions, we do more brain scans. We'll do another brain map to kind of track progression, see where the person is. And then once we're seeing those changes, we know it's permanent. We know that there's long lasting effects. Permanent's a strong word, but we know there's long lasting effects. Sometimes people have to come back for a booster or something. If we're talking about anxiety or trauma, if they've experienced something that might re-trigger them, sometimes we can see a little regression, but it's also a very quick change back to where they were beforehand.
Is this something that medical insurance covers a portion of, or is this something that is considered alternative, you know?
Yeah, kind of the same, like kind of like one foot in both camps, like we were talking about before. Some insurances will cover it. Some insurances will not. There's some parts of it that will be covered. Sometimes the sessions are covered, but not the brain maps.
Right.
Sometimes a results session will be covered, but not the regular sessions. It's hard to say. I'm sure I'm sure we could have a whole other discussion about insurance.
Yes.
We need more time for that probably. But yeah, we have had some luck with insurance. Every so often we get some good news that they're considering neurofeedback more and more within kind of the evidence-based realm. There's tons of evidence for it. So hopefully one day we'll get full parity. But for now we're doing the best we can.
Okay, wonderful. In what capacity have you done work with children in schools, or like is your outpatient setting just strictly focused on this type of treatment, or have you done other work with children in an outpatient setting?
Yeah, so the clinic we're in now, there's two main parts. One's neurofeedback. The other we do neurological testing. And a big part of that is, especially for me, I work with a lot of kids. We do a lot of academic testing. So I do end up getting into the schools. Just sometimes it's more just an advocate for where the kid is at and what they need. Sometimes it is a little bit more to the point here, showing like, oh, we've identified what's going on. We did get a little bit more deeper into what we're seeing. A lot of kids come in because everyone in their lives just knows they have ADHD. Their parents, oh, he's definitely got it. The teachers, he's definitely got it. We do the testing, and guess what? It's been depression the whole time or something.
Or anxiety?
So now or anxiety, yeah, or trauma, like whatever it could be. I mean, sometimes it's also ADHD. So yeah, sometimes they're right. But yeah, no. And then that's a lot of times just explaining the difference, hopefully to teachers, to administrators, to parents often as well, of what is the path now, so we can address the behaviors based on the source, based on the root of what the child actually has.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so you must see sort of a lot of things for sure. And as far as like, so what do you think, in your opinion, is really the most? I mean, we talked about sort of like the most damaging myth in schools and health being pushed is that it's sort of like behavioral, and having worked with kids and sort of missing some of the invisible root causes for parents that are listening and are, who might be thinking like, wait, this sounds like my child. What are some of the red flags or like subtle cues that their child is sort of like maybe living in survival mode or having some of these issues and they're not just acting out?
Yeah, I would say it's inconsistency. If you have a kid, let's just say there even existed a bad child, or even we use example ADHD, a child who is just a typical child, but they have ADHD, their behaviors, their presentation would be very consistent. Oftentimes when parents come in, teachers will call us up and they're describing the behaviors. It's inconsistent. There's some situation where the child acts a certain way, and then a very small change or no change at all. Just the next day, for instance, they're not acting that way. And it's like, okay, well then we probably did miss something. There's probably something else. Again, we're just going to sound the same thing. Or there's something going on in the root. Something happened like if you're coming to school and we're having a spelling test, and on one day the child is losing his mind, and on the next day they're totally fine. Well, yeah, what did happen at home? Did they sleep well? Did they have good breakfast? If it's trauma related, did something trigger them on the way to school, in school, things like that? When a child does have a neurological, biological difference, it's hard to find a setting where that just all of a sudden doesn't apply. So consistency, I would say, is probably the big one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And talking about schools, this is a place where so many kids break. And like, what role do schools play in dysregulation, shame, and even trauma reinforcement? I think a lot of the times that's what ends up happening, in the schools. Kids that are, they're going through something, they're constantly being called out, even if it's, anxiety or what have you, or ADHD, they're the kids that are always getting in trouble. They're getting like, you know, set off to the side, or they have to like sit in the back, or they have to sit up in the front. And I
Yeah.
think that does a lot to a kiddo's like self-esteem, where they're like, oh,
Mhm.
they're the kids that are always like being disruptive and all of that. And I think that can lead to some of the like reinforcement of in the shame too, that can sort
Sure.
of amplify, some of the challenges that they're having.
Yeah, I mean, I have all this respect in the world for teachers. They are fighting a losing battle in a lot of, even if all their students are fantastic and they're well supported, it's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
I know they're all trying their best. What I do see sometimes, unfortunately, is teachers who they might be fantastic educators, but they don't have the background in psychology. They don't have the background in even sometimes child development, which is really what's going to make them more aware of, more informed on what these kids might be presenting with, how to handle those difficult situations. And again, even if you do have a singular teacher who is, I mean, we have kids who are acting out a lot, and we have kids who've experienced trauma. Oftentimes, it's brought up to the administrative level, and the more people you get involved, unfortunately, the less likely they all are to have that kind of experience and that knowledge. And then before you know it, these kids are going down the wrong path. They're in that kind of shame spiral you talked
Yeah.
about. They're being called out for things they have no control over. Yeah, it can get pretty bad. There are thankfully some therapeutic schools out there that can really be helpful, even temporarily. It can be difficult. And this is where I was at the beginning of the answer, trying to empathize with the teachers who are trying to work with so many kids and
Yeah.
so many needs. Even sometimes just one person who's struggling can really disrupt the whole. Sometimes they don't have an option, which
Yeah.
is really hard to say. Hard to say. It's hard to put that on the child. But again, that's why it's so important to identify, to go through the mental health process of figuring out what is the root cause, what are the recommendations that can help, even if sometimes they do have to be a little intense, at least at first, to get the child where they can really be successful.
Yeah. So true. And there's, unfortunately, teachers do have a lot on their plate. I mean, they've got a lot of kids in the classroom, and it's really hard to give as much attention as you want to each individual child.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's very easy for kids to kind of get lost in that space
Hmm.
when if there's 30 kids in the classroom or 25 or whatever, that's a lot of
Yeah.
kids. So it can
A
definitely
lot
be
of needs.
challenging. Yeah, a lot of needs, a lot of things that can get less, get left behind, I should say.
Sure.
So if you were to redesign the school system from a
Boy.
nervous system perspective, or nervous system first perspective, what
Boy.
would you change first?
Yeah.
Hard question.
Boy, no, it's a good one. I wish I had thought about this earlier. I don't we and the truth is I've like had similar discussions about this. It's hard to say because on the one hand, right now we do grades based on age, which is okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. Age definitely gives us a good idea of developmental level, of maturity level, emotional level, things like that. But those are kind of things that are a little bit more important, especially when it comes to education. Yeah, some kids might be more intelligent than others. And we definitely want to promote and protect everyone's different intelligence levels. But if the goal, especially at a young age, if the goal is to promote in the enjoyment of learning, right? Obviously, we want to teach the kids how to add and how to read and stuff too. It's important. But if we want to really just promote the enjoyment of learning, and again, I'm thinking like 6 and under. So it's
Hmm.
it's. I think most people would agree that's more important at those ages.
Yeah.
Then really developmental level, emotional level are kind of more important.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, though, unfortunately, that does just kind of mean gender differences,
Hmm.
and a lot of people don't like that. I'm not the biggest fan of that either,
Hmm.
but if we had a way to separate the kids by those different levels, it wouldn't be by gender. It would be by those things. We might see gender differences, but it wouldn't be based on that.
Hmm.
And then the classes, the instruction could be designed for those specific needs.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Um, and one of the things I like to talk about too is like behavior as language. What do you know about behavior as language? Can you explain that? And really, what happens when we stop trying to control behavior and just start listening to it?
Yeah, oh man, 2 good questions. The first, I'm sure you've heard the term a secondary gain.
Mm-hmm.
And I use that term, I use that term a lot in my
Yeah.
practice where, and it kind of ties into the consistency piece from before. When this behavior is happening, what are they really trying to do? What are they really, what is that secondary gain? Obviously,
Yeah.
the first benefit might be, okay, I don't want to take this spelling test, so I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. But there's other ways, there's much nicer ways to just say, I don't want to take this spelling
Yeah.
test. So then there's another reason why they're engaging in that activity. Everything, especially with kids, everything that people do is communicating something.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it's verbal and we can just kind of know what the words are that they're saying, or whether it's just a face they're making. I think, we're talking a lot about externalizing behaviors, the temper tantrums and stuff. But what can also go missed is the kids who sit in the corner and don't say anything and never raise their hand. That's also communicating something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no communication is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a good eye, first of all, but then also a good heart to be able to communicate, to open that kid up and find out what is behind all these things. It also takes a lot of time, unfortunately. I think a lot of people, and then again, not to specifically look at teachers here, because it happens with
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Unless you're really familiar with the process and you trust the process, people kind of want quick answers, and they'll say, "Oh, what's going on?" And the person says nothing. Well, that's the end of the conversation.
Right.
It really can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, to just reiterate, I know the teachers don't have time to really
Mm-hmm.
get into it every single child every single time. But that's why we need to figure out where to place that child, kind of going back to that question before about therapeutic schools,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to eventually at least get to the heart of the matter. By the way, like, that's oftentimes, we do these tests and we give feedback afterwards, the result session, recommendations, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, I'm saying something like, set aside 30 minutes of just, this is more to parents, but can work in schools too. Set aside 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes every other day of just child time. Like, you do whatever you want. Hopefully, they're in a more regulated state during that sort of thing, but that allows those communication lanes to open. To just go in and say, hey, when someone's having a tantrum, just let them, or whatever, can kind of be difficult. We have to build a little bit of a foundation to be able to understand what the tantrum's about, how to help regulate in the tantrum, and then that communication is there, right? It's almost like you have to learn to speak their language.
Yeah.
Building that, growing with the kid a little bit, will allow us to just kind of let us listen to
Mm-hmm.
their tantrums rather than trying to stop them, change them, whatever. It gives us the tools to kind of, gently guide them where we want, rather than kind of push them where we want.
Yeah. Because that tantrum is communication.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
They're telling us something. We just have to figure out what it is.
Yeah. And
Although it's,
and, and that kind of, sorry.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, during a tantrum, it's impossible. Like,
Right.
when the kid is tantruming, there's no verbal
Right.
communication,
No,
I should
don't
say.
try.
Right. No, exactly. Don't try. But that's when everyone wants to try. That's
Yeah.
when all of a sudden, oh, now we're paying attention.
Yeah.
When they're sitting playing nicely or whatever, that's what we want. So we don't attend to them when they have the tantrum. Now we make the big deal. The alarms are going off.
Yeah.
But that's the worst
Yeah.
time
It's
to
too late.
engage.
Yeah. You gotta
Yeah,
wait,
exactly.
and you gotta you gotta wait and then debrief. Like afterwards,
Right.
then it's time to communicate
Yeah.
and all that. But yeah,
And again, those like 30 minutes of just child time
that's great.
can really help, because it's like, okay, when you're having a tantrum, I'll just come and I'll just sit next to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come and I'll rub your back a little bit. I'll get you a glass of water and then leave. And then guess what? You're communicating with them during their tantrum,
Right.
and it starts working. Again, you're speaking the same language.
That's right. And if you just allow them to do that, it teaches them that, okay, my feelings and getting upset and angry, it's okay. It's okay that I feel this way. Mom's here and she's here and letting me know that I'm safe and it's okay for me to feel angry. And, I can just feel this way instead of saying just stop crying or whatever. When you say that, it makes the child seem like, okay, I must be wrong for feeling this way. I shouldn't feel this way. And then you just kind of minimize their concerns. So, yeah, you just let them have it. And then when it's done, then you can sit down and kind of what happened? Was there something that I didn't understand? Help me understand so that next time, I know you know, where you were angry or why you were angry or what I could have done differently or whatever. But But yeah, it just like emotional validation, I think just is like the magic thing. Just letting them know that their feelings matter and that you understand and that they're heard, I think just goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially when you're a kid, you feel like, nobody listens. Everyone just kind of tells you what to do, how you should do it, when you should do it, and, just sit down and be quiet. And I think, just validating their emotions is such a powerful thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, the other option is like when they're having their meltdowns, when they're in their most vulnerable state, if you're not speaking the same language as them, it can a lot of ways make it worse. All of a sudden, oh, when I'm at my worst, that's when my parents are showing me that they care the least about me,
Mhm.
right? And that's pretty can be pretty damaging.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. All right. One other question. What's one example where you've seen where a kid completely transformed, not because their diagnosis changed, but because the approach changed?
Good question. It's hard. I don't want to just say the neurofeedback piece because that one's pretty cool. It works really well with like treatment resistant patients, so that's kind of nice. But you know what? We had one recently. It's actually exactly what we were talking about. One of the recommendations we gave was to set aside time for the kid. The child was from a mixed house, so I think there were 8 siblings in total. Maybe no, there were 8 in total, so 7 siblings. 8 kids in total, and he kind of felt left behind before
Yeah,
his mother got
sure.
remarried, and so now definitely feeling a little bit behind.
Yeah.
So we recommended 2 things. The first one was a bracelet system where every child had a bracelet, and if they needed to talk to their parents, they would give them the bracelet, and the parent, like if the parent was busy, they just put it on, and then they know to address them. So we just made sure that no one got forgotten. And then specifically for this child, we had them spend. We started pretty high actually. We started with an hour a day with one of the parents of just doing whatever, just really focusing more on
Great.
the child to do whatever they wanted they didn't even have to talk. It's like if you're doing an art project or going for a walk, we were able to slowly pare that down over time because it's just hard with 7 other kids. It's hard to
Oh, yeah.
spend all that time.
Absolutely.
But they were able to manage it. Yeah, but they were able to manage it. And what we were targeting for this child was not necessarily grades, but just like participation in school.
Hmm.
His grades were slipping also, but we knew it wasn't for like an intelligence reason. So we wanted more participation in school, and all of a sudden, even though we didn't change anything in the school, he started participating more. He was more active. He was like engaging with the teacher, with the class, with his work, and his grades were able to come up as well, which was nice.
That's great. That's great. Now, I did read somewhere that you were also a wrestling coach, right? Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, what have you learned from coaching teen athletes that most psychologists never see inside a therapy office?
Oh boy, yeah. I was about to say I don't use a lot of the things I'm talking about at wrestling practice. It's a very different role. I mean, on the one hand, like sometimes it is nice to be a psychologist every once in a while in my personal life, because the kids do have their own struggles, and it's nice to be able to see a little bit deeper, right? Rather than just like, oh, you had a bad match. We can talk about that. Yeah, I don't know. It's really so. I coach a high school team, and I work with kids a little bit younger than that, so that it doesn't overlap a ton. But it is really nice to see just how building some confidence in some kids does a lot. It's a great, like, I can tell people when we do the testing and we give the recommendations, like, oh, yeah, they need more confidence. How do you do that? Yeah, that's a good question. Um, but then to see it, to see a freshman come in who doesn't believe in themselves and not like, maybe not a lot of friends, whatever. And then to see over the course of those 4 years, what they can grow into, how achievement and how hard work can contribute to so many other aspects of life, can really just change their brain entirely. Is pretty cool. I don't know if I've seen that outside of wrestling. I don't see it in the mental health field, at least,
That's
to that
great.
capacity.
That's great. And especially with boys, like I see, sometimes emotional shutdown or explosive behavior and really a deep lack of self-trust.
Mm.
And I would think that the physical coaching intersects with emotional regulation by having that, like that connection to a team, a coach, that self-esteem and that, that desire to want to succeed and do well in other areas, of life as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way for them to learn failure appropriately. It's a great way to learn success appropriately.
Yeah.
To have a supportive system regardless of the outcome. It can do I think all sports, obviously wrestling is the best one, but any sort of organized sport can be helpful for that.
Yeah, I would think wrestling. My boys tried it when they were younger. They didn't stick it out for too long. I wish they had because it is a great sport and yeah, it keeps you in great shape. They didn't stick it out.
It's not for everyone.
No, it's not easy for sure, for sure. But oh well. So for the parent who's exhausted, who feels like they've tried everything, therapy, medications, routines, and nothing is helping their child, what would you say to reframe that entire journey?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, kudos on trying all that stuff. Give yourself at least a pat on the back for being in this. A lot of parents just ignore this kind of stuff. So, way to go. I think the everything is the part that I'd want to reframe, right? I'm sure you've tried a lot. I'm sure it's been super frustrating. It can be hard to put in so much work and to not see any change. But there's a lot of different stuff out there. Uh, when it comes to mental health, from my experience at least, people either think it's therapy or drugs, and that's kind of it. And there's a lot of other things out there, anywhere from stuff like neurofeedback or testing to even just kind of the very basic, like, make sure they're sleeping okay,
Yeah.
sort of stuff. The little changes you can make at home. Don't give up. There's definitely it goes back to the original question. Like, your child is not broken. Your child is not bad. You might have tried a lot of stuff, and maybe the stuff you tried isn't working, but there's going to be something out there that can help them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So this next portion of our interview is going to be like just some rapid fire, like one liner, like fill in the blanks. All right.
Lightning round.
Yeah. So ADHD is often a sign of
I mean, I would say it's biological. If you have actual ADHD, there's something going on in your brain, and we can work on that. If it's kind of the presentation of ADHD, it might be more of emotion regulation.
most bad behavior is really just
Hidden communication. Something trying to express something you don't have the words for.
the school system needs to stop. I'm going
Maybe
to
over
say it.
pathology.
The school
Yeah.
system needs to stop asking kids, did you take your medicine this morning?
So I don't know if I said over pathologizing. Yeah. It's definitely in the same realm. Needs to stop blaming the kids as much. Maybe I think it's the same answer, right? Over pathologizing.
Yeah. I
Um.
get asked that
Yeah.
question a lot as a prescriber. I will get like parents will come in and say, the teacher asked if my son took his med this morning, or the teacher recommended that we go up on his dose. Like, what? That should be none of their business.
I've been in meetings where, obviously this is a private school where the teacher or administrator won't allow the child back until they're on medication. And it's like, I'm sorry, you are not qualified to make that decision. You don't have prescription privileges. I don't have prescription privileges.
That is so inappropriate and so out of their league or and so none of their business.
But it's actually similar to the question before, right? About parents who might have given up. There's more things than medication. There's
A
other
lot
things.
more
Don't get me wrong.
things.
Medication is if you found it and it works well, it's a wonderful tool in the toolbox. But it is not the only tool in the toolbox.
Absolutely. There's a lot more tools than that. Okay.
Yeah,
One more question.
sure.
Something I've learned on the wrestling mat that applies to therapy is
You get out what you put in. Whatever, if people come into therapy and they want some sort of magic cure, I personally, it's like, if this is going to be hard, I tell people when they come in for the first sessions, like, I'm not going to go easy on you. If you tell me you're going to work on something, we're going to work on that thing. I'll be supportive. I'll be nice about it, but I'm not going to let you get away with everything. Yeah. If you want to make change, it's going to be hard. It's going to hurt, and it's going to take work.
absolutely. Yes. All good things that are worth it absolutely does take work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we get a lot from TV about just like, oh, you go to therapy and you say like, my mother was bad, and all of a sudden you're better. And it's like,
Yeah.
sorry, it's a
No, it
lot
doesn't
work.
work that way.
Yeah,
Yeah. Everyone wants the quick fix, but nothing
right.
nothing is like that. Yeah. Well, this was beyond powerful, and I know there are parents listening who feel both validated and really called forward right now. And if someone wants to go deeper with you, work with you, learn from you, where should they go?
Our clinic is called Chicago Mind Solutions. You can just look that up. And we're always happy to talk more, to email me, set up a consultation, anything like that.
And last question, if you could rewire every parent's brain with one truth about raising emotionally strong, trauma-aware kids, what would it be?
Similar to how we were talking about tantrums, all feelings are also communications. Anything there that something's there, they're trying to say something, they're trying to understand something, and to take those emotions not necessarily as they are, but as they're supposed to be, as what's fueling them.
Dr. Saltzman, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
I mean, there's plenty more, but I think for now that's pretty good. But yeah, no, it was wonderful being here. Thank you so much for having me. Some excellent questions.
Thank you. If you felt a gut punch in this episode, good. That's the body waking up. And this is what happens when we stop chasing symptoms and start listening to the nervous system like it's the main character, because it is. Share this with every parent, every teacher, every school counselor who's still trying to force kids into systems that were never built for healing. Subscribe, review, and we'll see you in the next episode, where we'll go even deeper into root cause, full body, no BS healing. This is the Root Cause Reset, and we're just getting started.
I'm Dr. Trish Schneider, a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner and functional bloodwork specialist.